What if I told you that everything you think is ruining your life, the difficult boss, the traffic jam, the rejection, the disappointment, has absolutely no power over you? That sounds impossible, doesn't it? Yet over 2,000 years ago, a group of philosophers discovered something so powerful that it transformed slaves into teachers of emperors, and emperors into the wisest rulers in history. In 2024, a Yale University study found that 76% of Americans report feeling out of control in their daily lives, anxious about things they can't change, angry about situations they can't fix, paralyzed by circumstances beyond their influence. We're living in the most connected era in human history, yet we've never felt more powerless. The Stoics understood something we've forgotten: you cannot control what happens to you, but you have absolute control over how you respond. And that distinction, that single mental shift, is the key to reclaiming your life. This isn't just ancient philosophy. This is a practical operating system for navigating modern chaos with unshakable calm. Before we dive deep, let me paint you a picture of where Stoicism was born. Ancient Rome, 161 AD. Marcus Aurelius becomes emperor of the most powerful civilization on earth. He has unlimited wealth, supreme authority, legions at his command. Yet every night, he writes in his private journal, not about conquests or glory, but about controlling his own mind. You have power over your mind, not outside events, he writes. Realize this, and you will find strength. Meanwhile, decades earlier, a man named Epictetus, born a slave, physically disabled, owning nothing, teaches the same philosophy from a different angle. He says, it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. Think about that. An emperor with everything and a slave with nothing arrive at the same truth. This isn't philosophy for the privileged or the desperate, it's philosophy for anyone who wants to stop being a hostage to circumstances. And right now, as you're watching this, you're probably trapped by something you think you can't change. Let's start with the foundation, the concept that changes everything. The Stoics called it the Dichotomy of Control, and it's brutally simple. There are things you control, and things you don't. That's it. But here's where it gets interesting: most people spend 90% of their mental energy on things they can't control, and maybe 10% on things they can. We worry about the economy, the weather, other people's opinions, past mistakes, future uncertainties. We exhaust ourselves trying to change the unchangeable. Meanwhile, the things we actually control, our thoughts, our reactions, our effort, our character, we neglect. Epictetus put it plainly: make the best use of what is in your power, and take the rest as it happens. Stop for a second and think about what you worried about today. Your coworker's attitude? Can't control it. The traffic? Can't control it. Your project being approved? Can't control it. But here's what you can control: how you responded to your coworker, how you used the time in traffic, the quality of work you put into that project. See the difference? Let me give you a modern example that makes this crystal clear. Imagine you're preparing for a crucial presentation at work. You've worked on it for weeks. The night before, you can't sleep. You're anxious about how it'll be received, whether your boss will approve, if your colleagues will be impressed. That's wasted energy on things outside your control. What you control: the preparation, the practice, showing up with your best effort, speaking clearly, your attitude during delivery. What you don't control: your boss's mood that day, the company's budget decisions affecting your proposal, your colleague's jealousy, the projector malfunctioning, someone's personal bias against you. A Stoic would put 100% of their focus on preparation and 0% on predicting outcomes. They'd walk into that room having done everything in their power, then accept whatever happens with equanimity. This isn't passivity, it's precision. It's directing your energy exclusively where it can make a difference. Ryan Holiday, modern Stoic author, calls this the art of acquiescence, not giving up, but giving your best, then letting go of attachment to results. Now let's talk about the second core principle: perception is everything. Marcus Aurelius wrote, if you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it, and this you have the power to revoke at any moment. Read that again. The event doesn't hurt you, your judgment about the event does. This is radical because it means you're never actually upset by what happens. You're upset by what you tell yourself about what happens. Someone cuts you off in traffic. The action itself is neutral: a car changed lanes. But you tell yourself a story: that person is disrespecting me. They think they're more important. People are so selfish nowadays. Now you're angry. But that anger came from your interpretation, not the event. A Stoic would think, they're probably distracted or in an emergency. Either way, it has nothing to do with me. I'll maintain my lane and my peace. Same event, completely different experience. This isn't about positive thinking or denying reality. It's about seeing reality clearly without the distortion of unnecessary judgment. Let me give you a personal story that illustrates this. A friend of mine lost his job in 2023 during the tech layoffs. Devastating, right? He had every reason to be angry, depressed, panicked. Instead, he told me, I can see this as the worst thing that ever happened, or I can see this as liberation from a job I'd outgrown, with severance pay to explore what I actually want. 6 months later, he started a business that's now more successful than his old salary. Did losing the job cause that success? No. His perception of the job loss created the possibility for success. The Stoics practiced something called turning the obstacle upside down. Every setback contains the seed of equivalent or greater benefit, but only if you look for it. This isn't optimistic delusion. It's practical alchemy. When something goes wrong, immediately ask, what's the opportunity here? How can I use this? What can this teach me? That shift in questioning shifts everything. The third principle is voluntary discomfort, and this is where Stoicism gets really interesting. The Stoics didn't just endure hardship when it came, they actively practiced discomfort to prepare for it. Seneca, the wealthy Roman philosopher, would periodically sleep on the floor, eat basic food, wear simple clothes. He'd ask himself, is this the condition I feared? Cato the Younger would walk barefoot through Rome in winter. Not as punishment, but as practice. Why? Because comfort makes you fragile. When you're used to everything being easy, the smallest difficulty becomes unbearable. But when you voluntarily experience discomfort, involuntary discomfort becomes manageable. Think about it. If you've never been uncomfortable, a cold room feels like torture. But if you regularly take cold showers, a cold room is nothing. If you've never been hungry, missing lunch feels like crisis. But if you've fasted, hunger becomes a familiar, manageable sensation. This isn't about being miserable, it's about being prepared. It's about removing fear's power by familiarizing yourself with what you fear. Let me translate this into modern practice. You don't need to sleep on floors or walk barefoot in winter, though you could. Here's what voluntary discomfort looks like today: take that cold shower everyone's talking about. Not because it's trendy, but because it teaches you that discomfort is survivable and you're stronger than you think. Fast occasionally, even if just skipping one meal. Experience hunger without immediately satisfying it. Delete social media apps for a weekend. Sit with boredom instead of reaching for your phone. Have that difficult conversation you've been avoiding. Exercise when you don't feel like it. Wake up early when you'd rather sleep in. Each of these small acts of voluntary discomfort builds what the Stoics called inner citadel, an unshakable core that external circumstances can't penetrate. You're literally training your nervous system to remain calm under pressure. A 2024 study from the University of Colorado found that people who regularly practice voluntary discomfort show 43% lower stress responses to unexpected challenges. The Stoics knew this 2,000 years ago without the studies. Now let's address what might be the most powerful Stoic practice: negative visualization. The Stoics called it premeditatio malorum, premeditation of evils. Sounds dark, doesn't it? But it's actually profoundly practical. Here's how it works: regularly imagine losing the things you value. Your health, your job, your relationships, your possessions. Not to be pessimistic, but to appreciate what you have and prepare for loss. Seneca wrote, "The man who has anticipated the coming of troubles takes away their power when they arrive." Think about your morning coffee. Nice, but you barely notice it, right? Now imagine you're in a situation where coffee is unavailable for a month. Suddenly, that morning cup becomes precious. That's negative visualization. It restores appreciation by contemplating absence. Or think about your partner. Familiarity breeds complacency. But if you spend 1 minute imagining your life if they were gone, you'll hug them differently tonight. This isn't morbid, it's honest. Everything you have is temporary. Everyone you love is mortal. Pretending otherwise doesn't change reality, it just makes you unprepared and unappreciative. Let me share how I personally use negative visualization. Every Sunday evening, I spend 5 minutes imagining I've lost my biggest client, my health takes a turn, or a relationship ends. Not dwelling on it, just acknowledging the possibility. Then I ask, how would I handle this? What resources do I have? What would I learn? This practice does three things. First, it makes me grateful for what I currently have. Second, it removes the shock factor if something actually goes wrong, I've already mentally rehearsed. Third, it often reveals practical preparations I should make. After visualizing health problems, I scheduled a checkup I've postponed. After visualizing financial loss, I examine my emergency fund. The practice itself generates action. Marcus Aurelius practiced this constantly. As emperor, he'd remind himself, when you wake up in the morning, tell yourself, the people I deal with today will be meddling, ungrateful, arrogant, dishonest, jealous and surly. Pessimistic? No. Prepared. When people actually behaved this way, he wasn't disappointed or angry, he was ready. And when they behaved better, he was pleasantly surprised. Let's talk about anger, because Stoicism has something radical to say about it. Seneca wrote an entire book called On Anger, and his thesis is simple: anger is always a mistake. Always. Not sometimes, not usually, always. That probably sounds impossible to you. What about righteous anger? What about standing up for yourself? Here's what Seneca means: anger is the belief that getting upset will somehow improve the situation. But it never does. Think about the last time you were angry. Did the anger solve anything? Or did it cloud your judgment, escalate the situation, and make you say things you regretted? Anger feels powerful, but it's actually a confession of powerlessness. You're angry because you can't control something, so you try to control it through emotion. But Stoics don't confuse firm action with angry reaction. You can set boundaries without anger. You can correct injustice without rage. You can be strong without being emotional. In fact, you're stronger without the anger because you're thinking clearly. When someone insults you, anger wants you to insult back. Stoicism asks, what does insulting them accomplish? Does it make you better? Does it fix anything? Here's a practical technique the Stoics use to neutralize anger: the pause. When something triggers you, Seneca recommends doing absolutely nothing. Just pause. Count to 10. Take a breath. Walk away if possible. Why? Because anger is a temporary insanity, and like any intoxication, it passes. In that pause, ask yourself these Stoic questions: will I care about this in a year? In a month? In a week? Most anger evaporates under this lens. Is this person's opinion of me based on reality or their own issues? Usually it's their issues. What would Marcus Aurelius do right now? He'd probably excuse himself, take a walk, and return with clarity. Am I angry at the action, or angry that my expectations weren't met? Usually it's the expectations. Modern neuroscience confirms what Stoics intuited: the neurochemical cascade of anger lasts about 90 seconds. If you can pause for 2 minutes, you're literally allowing the chemical reaction to complete, and you'll respond from your prefrontal cortex instead of your amygdala. That's the difference between reaction and response. Animals react. Humans can respond. Now we arrive at Memento Mori, remember you must die. This is Stoicism's most famous meditation, and it's wildly misunderstood. People think it's morbid. It's actually liberating. The Stoics kept skulls on their desks, not out of darkness, but out of clarity. Death is the ultimate deadline. It puts everything in perspective. Marcus Aurelius wrote, you could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think. That annoying email? Meaningless if you died tomorrow. That grudge you're holding? Absurd in the face of mortality. That dream you're postponing? Urgent when you realize time is finite. Steve Jobs, who studied Eastern philosophy which shares this principle, said at his Stanford commencement, remembering that I'll be dead soon is the most important tool I've ever encountered to help me make the big choices in life. Because when you remember you're going to die, you stop living like you have infinite time. You stop sweating small things. You stop putting off important conversations. You stop tolerating situations that drain you. You start living with intention. Let me make Memento Mori practical for you. Tonight, before sleep, ask yourself, if I died tomorrow, what would I regret not doing? Not saying. Not being. Then do something about it this week. Call that person. Start that project. Change that situation. Also, use death as a filter for decisions. When you're agonizing over something, a job offer, a relationship question, a purchase decision, ask, from my deathbed, which choice will I be glad I made? Suddenly, clarity emerges. You realize that job with the higher salary but longer hours might steal time you can never recover. That relationship you're clinging to out of comfort might be preventing the connection you actually want. That expensive car matters way less than you thought. The Stoics weren't being dark, they were being realistic. You have maybe 4,000 weeks of life if you're lucky. You've already used many of them. The rest are running out right now, as you watch this video. That's not depressing, that's the most motivating fact in existence. It makes every day precious. Every relationship significant. Every choice important. Let's address what Stoicism is not, because there's a lot of misunderstanding. Stoicism is not suppressing emotions. It's not being cold, robotic, or uncaring. It's not passively accepting injustice or abuse. Those are cartoon versions that miss the point entirely. Real Stoicism is about appropriate emotional response. Feel joy, but don't depend on external things for happiness. Feel sadness, but don't be destroyed by loss. Feel love deeply, but don't become possessive or dependent. The Stoic loves fully while knowing everything is temporary. They care intensely while accepting they can't control outcomes. They feel completely while not being controlled by feelings. Marcus Aurelius cried when his children died. Seneca felt deep affection for his friends. Epictetus taught with passion and humor. They weren't emotionless, they were emotionally mature. There's a massive difference between emotional suppression and emotional regulation. Suppression is pushing feelings down. Regulation is feeling them fully, then choosing how to respond. Stoicism is the ultimate emotional intelligence training. Now let's talk about the Stoic morning routine, because how you start your day determines how you experience your day. Marcus Aurelius had a morning meditation he wrote down: begin each day by telling yourself, today I shall be meeting with interference, ingratitude, insolence, disloyalty, ill will, and selfishness. Why start the day so negatively? Because he's removing the element of surprise. If you expect perfection, disappointment is guaranteed. If you expect difficulty, you're prepared, and anything better is a bonus. Here's a modern Stoic morning practice. First, 5 minutes of contemplation. Sit quietly and remind yourself of the dichotomy of control. What can you control today? Only your actions, effort, and responses. Everything else is beyond you. Second, set your intention. Not outcomes, but character. Today I will be patient. Today I will be honest. Today I will be present. Third, practice negative visualization briefly. What might go wrong today? How will you handle it? Just 2 minutes of mental rehearsal. Fourth, gratitude. Name 3 things you're grateful for. This primes your perception to notice good rather than hunting for problems. The evening routine is equally important. The Stoics practiced something called the evening review, examining their day not to judge, but to learn. Seneca wrote, "When the light has been removed and my wife has fallen silent, I examine my entire day and go back over what I've done and said, hiding nothing from myself, passing nothing by." Here's how to do it. Before sleep, ask yourself 3 questions. Where did I lack virtue today? Maybe you were impatient with someone, or lazy about a commitment, or dishonest in a small way. Acknowledge it without beating yourself up. Where did I act according to my principles? Celebrate those moments. You kept your word, you helped someone, you stayed calm under pressure. What could I have done better? Not to ruminate, but to prepare. Next time that situation arises, you'll be ready. This practice takes 5 minutes and compounds daily. You're essentially debugging your own behavioral code, identifying errors, and updating your operating system. Within weeks, you'll notice yourself catching mistakes in real time because you've trained awareness through nightly review. Let's address the relationship between Stoicism and action, because this is crucial. Some people think Stoicism means passive acceptance of everything. That's completely wrong. The Stoics were intensely active. Marcus Aurelius ruled an empire. Cato the Younger fought tyranny. Seneca advised emperors. They acted boldly, but without attachment to outcomes. Here's the distinction: a Stoic prepares thoroughly, acts decisively, then accepts results without complaint. They don't confuse acceptance with passivity. If something is within your control and wrong, change it. That's your duty. If something is beyond your control and wrong, accept it while you work around it or through it. The question isn't, should I accept this? The question is this within my control? If yes, act. If no, adapt. This is especially relevant for social justice, activism, or any systemic problem. A Stoic doesn't shrug at injustice saying, "That's beyond my control." They ask, "What part of this is within my control?" Maybe you can't change the entire system, but you can vote, volunteer, donate, educate, model better behavior. You control your contribution. You don't control the outcome. Here's where Stoicism becomes truly transformative, understanding that virtue is the only true good. The Stoics believed that wisdom, justice, courage, and self-discipline, the four cardinal virtues, are the only things that have inherent value. Everything else, money, health, reputation, relationships, is preferred indifferent. This sounds cold until you understand what it means. Preferred indifferent means, these things are nice to have, you can work toward them, but they don't make you good or bad. A poor person with integrity is better than a rich person without it. A sick person with courage is stronger than a healthy coward. Your character is the only thing you truly own, the only thing that goes with you everywhere, the only thing no one can take away. When you build your life on virtue rather than circumstances, you become unshakable. Market crashes. Your integrity remains. Health declines. Your wisdom remains. People leave. Your character remains. This is why Epictetus, despite being enslaved and disabled, was fundamentally free, because he built his identity on internal qualities no master could touch. And this is why many modern people, despite having everything, feel empty, because they've built identity on external things that can disappear. So here we are at the end, but really, this is just the beginning. Stoicism isn't something you learn, it's something you practice daily for life. Every morning is a chance to remember what you control. Every difficulty is practice for responding with virtue. Every evening is an opportunity to review and improve. You will fail at this constantly. You'll get angry when you meant to stay calm. You'll worry about things you can't control. You'll forget to be grateful. That's expected. Even Marcus Aurelius, after decades of practice, wrote reminders to himself because he still needed them. The goal isn't perfection. The goal is direction. Are you moving toward wisdom or away from it? Toward virtue or away from it? Toward freedom or away from it? Start today. Right now. Pick one Stoic practice, maybe it's the morning meditation, the evening review, the pause before anger, the cold shower, the moment of gratitude. Just one. Do it daily for a week. That's all. Then add another. Within months, you'll notice something remarkable. Life hasn't changed, but your relationship with life has transformed completely. You're calmer amid chaos. Stronger amid difficulty. Freer amid circumstances. That's the promise of Stoicism, not an easier life, but an unshakable you. Welcome to the practice. It starts now.